My beloved brother, my dear sister, if you've been seeing them in dreams again and again, it doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're broken. It simply means Allah is still working on something inside you. Something beautiful. You're not crazy. You're not alone. You're being spoken to, not with words, but through the unseen language of divine mercy. Don't rush to decode the dream. Don't chase signs from people. Chase the one who sent the dream. And if you can sit quietly after it, raise your hands and whisper, Ya Allah, I don't understand, but I trust you. Then that moment becomes your healing. Because true peace doesn't come when they come back. It comes when you come back to Allah, and He is always ready to welcome you, even through the silence of a dream. You're not dreaming about them, you're dreaming about the version of you that loved them. You keep seeing them in different ways. Some nights they're smiling at you, other nights they're walking away. Sometimes they speak, sometimes they just look at you, and you wake up with your heart racing, your chest aching, your mind full of questions. Again, you wonder, why do they keep showing up? You ask Allah, Ya Rab, is this a sign? Am I supposed to go back? Are they thinking about me too? But my dear soul, let me tell you something quietly. You're not dreaming about them. You're dreaming about the you who once loved them. It's not their presence that's haunting your sleep. It's your past self that's still reaching for air. The version of you that laughed more, trusted more, believed more, gave more. That version of you that stayed up praying for someone who barely understood the value of your tears. That version of you is still trying to speak, still trying to be heard, still aching for closure, not from them, but from you. You see, when we lose someone we once loved deeply, especially when it was sudden, confusing, or painful, we don't just lose them. We lose the version of ourselves that existed during that time. That fragile, innocent, loyal part of you. The one who stayed up waiting for a message that never came. The one who kept forgiving things that were breaking your soul quietly. The one who thought love meant patience, even if that patience was destroying your self-worth. You buried that version of yourself the moment they left. You moved on. Or at least you told yourself you did. You smiled. You rebuilt. You learned boundaries. You became stronger. But somewhere deep inside, that softer, more vulnerable you is still sitting quietly, waiting to be acknowledged, waiting to be healed, not erased, not punished, just loved. And so Allah in His mercy shows you this dream, not to confuse you, not to pull you back, but to remind you that healing isn't about deleting every memory. It's about facing the reflection in that dream and saying, I see you, I remember who you were, I know why you loved the way you did, and I forgive you for not knowing better. Sometimes the dream isn't a sign of reunion, it's a sacred reunion with yourself. Allah knows the exact version of you that broke in that season. He knows you stopped smiling the same way after they left. He knows you stopped believing in love the way you used to. He knows how slowly your heart started closing itself off, not just from people, but from hope. So now, when you see that face in your sleep, don't rush to attach meaning to them. Don't assume it's about getting them back. Don't let your emotions run wild. Instead, ask, what part of me have I not forgiven yet? What part of me still needs a hug? You are being shown a version of you that was once full of light, but became dimmed by the wrong love. That light still exists. And maybe, just maybe, Allah is trying to return you to you, not to who you were, but to who you were always meant to become after the pain matured your faith, After the heartbreak rewired your dua, after the dreams turned into divine wake-up calls, this is not a sign to go back to them. It's a sign to go back to your Rabb. Because that old version of you, the one still stuck in that moment, doesn't need their love. It needs your compassion. It needs your dua. It needs you to say, I don't need that chapter to feel whole anymore. Because I have Allah. And that's enough. And when that prayer finally leaves your lips, you'll still dream sometimes. But it won't shake you. It won't break you. It won't leave you in tears anymore. Because now you'll know it was never really about them. It was always about the part of your soul that was quietly waiting for you to return. Their image keeps appearing because your soul hasn't understood the real reason for the separation. You keep seeing them, their face, their eyes. Sometimes you hear their voice. And when you wake up, there's a silence so loud inside your chest, it almost feels like loss all over again. You tell yourself, it's just a dream, but it doesn't feel like just a dream. It lingers. It follows you through the day. It whispers at Fajr. It echoes in your sujood. And you start wondering, Ya Allah, what are you trying to tell me? Let me speak to you gently, like a brother would. Sometimes your soul sees what your mind refuses to accept. And the truth is, you keep seeing their image because your heart still doesn't understand why it had to end. You keep trying to rewrite the story in your head, trying to figure out what went wrong, what you could have done differently, what they should have done better. And because your soul is still looking for an explanation, Allah keeps showing you their face. Not to hurt you, but to show you, you still haven't understood what I saved you from. You see, most people assume that when something ends, especially a relationship they prayed for, it means something went wrong. But sometimes something ends because something was going right. Because Allah saw something ahead that your heart couldn't. Maybe the relationship was slowly pulling you away from who you were meant to become. Maybe your energy was being spent holding something together that was never meant to be whole in the first place. Maybe your soul started shrinking to fit inside their story when Allah wrote a much bigger one for you. But you didn't see that. You were too close, too emotionally invested, too attached to the idea of them. So Allah had to separate you, not to break you, but to bring you back to yourself. And now, your soul is still asking questions. It's still looking for logic, still looking for closure in the wrong place. And Allah is gently reminding you, you don't need to understand the how when I already protected you from the why. Their face keeps appearing in your dreams because you keep looking for healing in human answers. But what happened between you and them was never just about emotions. It was spiritual. It was divine. It was part of a plan your heart wasn't ready for, but your soul needed. And here's something you may not have heard before. Not all goodbyes come from the shaitan. Some separations come directly from Ar-Rahman. Because even if you begged for it to work, even if you loved them for the sake of Allah, He still saw that this bond would block the light He wrote for you. And so, He ended it. But because you didn't see the full truth, your heart feels abandoned. And so, Allah sends the dream again and again. Not because He's punishing you, but because He's inviting you to reflect deeper, to go beyond heartbreak, to stop saying, why did they leave? And start asking, Ya Allah, what were you saving me from? And when that shift happens, when you finally surrender to divine wisdom, instead of chasing human logic, the dream begins to fade. Or at least it stops hurting the same way. Because now you realize you weren't dreaming about a person, you were dreaming about a lesson. one that still hadn't fully entered your heart. And maybe tonight is the night it finally does. The dream isn't a sign of reunion, it's a sacred test of emotional obedience. You saw them again. Maybe this time they held your hand. Or maybe they looked at you with the softness you always wished for when you were awake. And for a few seconds, your heart believed it was real. Your soul softened again. You thought, could this mean something? Maybe they're coming back. Maybe Allah is showing me that this love isn't over. But then you woke up and the silence hit you. They're still gone. Nothing's changed. And the ache returns deeper now because the dream felt so close, so intimate, so convincing. But my dear soul, let me gently offer you a different possibility. What if the dream wasn't a promise of reunion? What if it wasn't a door being reopened, but a door being tested? Because sometimes what feels like divine romance is actually divine resistance. Sometimes the dream is not a sign to reach out. It's a sacred test to see if you still will. You see, Allah doesn't just test us with hardship. He tests us with attachment, with emotion, with memory, with softness that hasn't been disciplined yet, with love that still doesn't know when to let go. And when He wants to elevate you, when He wants to make your love for Him greater than your love for anyone else, He allows the image of what you once loved to visit your sleep, not to bring them back, but to ask your heart a quiet question. Will you still obey me even when your feelings scream otherwise? That's what emotional obedience is. It's when your emotions beg you to act, but your faith tells you to be still. It's when your heart wants to message them, wants to decode the dream, wants to dig up what Allah buried, but your soul whispers, no, I choose Allah instead. And that moment, that one quiet moment where you pause and say, Ya Rabb, I saw the dream, but I will not run after it unless you command it. That is ibadah. That is submission. That is emotional tawakkul. That is what turns heartbreak into worship. You don't pass the test by never dreaming of them. You pass it by waking up and doing nothing except turning your face to the one who sent the dream in the first place. Because dreams are powerful. They can move the heart in seconds. They can reopen wounds. They can trigger emotions you've buried for months. And Allah knows that. He knows how soft your heart is, how easily it remembers. And that's exactly why He uses the dream to measure your discipline. Will you turn the dream into fantasy? Or will you turn it into dua? Will you chase it blindly? Or will you guard your heart like it's a sacred trust? Allah is watching not just who you loved, but how you respond now that He separated you. And here's the secret no one says out loud. Sometimes the dream isn't a message. It's bait, a test to see if you'll reopen what Allah has already closed. And if you do, it's not the dream that breaks you. It's the disobedience that follows it. But if you don't, if you sit still, if you cry it out in private, if you say, Ya Allah, I saw them, but I trust you more than I trust my heart, then that test becomes a ladder that brings you closer to Allah than that person ever did. So next time you dream of them, don't just wake up wondering what it means. Wake up asking, how can I obey Allah with what I just felt? Because this is not about reunion. It's about surrender. And if your soul chooses obedience over emotion, you've already passed. The person you see might represent the part of you that still thinks you weren't enough. You keep seeing them and you don't know why. It's been months, maybe years. You've moved on, at least on the outside. You've deleted their number. You've stopped checking their profile. You've told yourself 1,000 times, it's over, I've healed. But then the dream comes, quiet, sudden, unexpected. They're there. They're smiling, or maybe not. They're talking, or just staring. But no matter what happens in the dream, you wake up with a wound that feels brand new. And deep down, beneath the confusion, beneath the tears, beneath the overthinking, there's the small, quiet voice in your heart whispering, was I not enough for them to stay? That's the pain you don't say out loud. That's the real reason the dream keeps haunting you. Not because you still want them, not because you're meant to be together, but because a part of you still believes you weren't worthy of being loved fully. That if you were better, more patient, more attractive, less emotional, more calm, then maybe, just maybe, they would have stayed. My beloved soul, let me speak to that version of you. The one who quietly blames themselves. The one who lies awake at night going over every detail, wondering what you did wrong, wondering why you weren't chosen, why you were left. What if I told you the person you keep seeing in your dreams isn't the one who broke you? It's the one your insecurities are still clinging to. You see, when your heart doesn't feel whole, it starts to create illusions. It turns people into mirrors. And the person in your dream may not be who you're missing, but who you're still trying to prove yourself to. That dream becomes a battlefield, not between you and them, but between who you were and who you still think you needed to be to deserve love. But Allah in His mercy keeps showing you that image to invite you deeper, to ask, why do you still think someone's love defines your worth? Why are you still holding your self-esteem hostage to someone I already removed? You keep asking for a sign. Ya Allah, why do I keep seeing them? And the answer might be, because you still think their leaving was about your value. But it wasn't. It was never about you not being enough. It was about the story not being written for you. It was about Allah seeing something in them or something in you that didn't align with the future He designed. Allah doesn't take people away to punish you. He removes them to protect what He's building inside you. But if your heart still believes it wasn't good enough, then their image will keep showing up, not as a person, but as a wound that needs healing. The dream is not about romance. It's about redemption. It's about facing the lie you keep repeating inside. If I was more, they would have stayed. No, my dear. They would have stayed if it was written. They would have stayed if it was safe. They would have stayed if they were capable of holding your heart the way Allah intended it to be held. But they didn't. And that's not your fault. That's your protection. So the next time you see them, I don't ask, are we meant to reunite? Ask instead, what lie about myself do I still believe and how can I give it back to Allah? Because you were never supposed to feel like you had to earn love. You were supposed to receive it freely or be redirected. And if Allah redirected you, it's because He wants you to find your worth in Him, not in the memory of someone who couldn't see what they were given. You are enough. You've always been enough. You were just offering your heart in a place where it couldn't be honored. Now, Allah is honoring it by removing what was never meant for you and showing you even in your dreams that healing starts with how you see yourself. The repetition of the dream means there's a dua you still haven't prayed yet. You've seen them more than once now. Not just a one-time dream. It keeps coming back. Different scenes, same feeling, different setting, same confusion. And each time it leaves you more drained than the last. You tell yourself, it's nothing, just sleep. But deep inside, you know better. Because when Allah repeats something, it's not random. Your soul already knows this. That's why you wake up restless. It's not just the memory of the person, it's the feeling that you're being called to something deeper and you don't know what it is yet. And I want to tell you something gently, something that most people don't talk about. If the dream keeps repeating, it might not be because of them. It might be because of a dua that still hasn't left your heart. Not a loud dua, not the ones you say with tears in public, but a buried one, a silent one, the one you never actually said because you didn't know how. Maybe it's the dua of release, the one where you say, Ya Allah, I don't want this to live inside me anymore. Maybe it's the dua of clarity, where you stop asking for signs from them and finally ask for signs from Allah. Or maybe it's the hardest one of all, the dua of complete surrender that whispers, even if I never understand why they came or why they left, I still choose your plan over my own. The dream is Allah's echo. It's His way of saying, you're holding something that needs to be handed to me. You're holding questions that you've tried to bury with distractions. You're holding hope that was never tied to Allah in the first place. You're holding pain and waiting for time to erase it, when only dua can transform it. We forget this sometimes. Dua is not only for the beginning of love, it's for the after. It's for the confusion, for the aching silence, for the nights where you don't even know what you're asking for, but your heart is begging for some kind of ending, some kind of peace. So what if the repetition of the dream isn't a punishment, but a pause from Allah? What if He keeps sending it back, not to make you miss them, but to make you face the dua that will finally set your soul free, because you can't lie in front of Allah. He knows the dua you wanted to make. He knows the one you almost said, but swallowed. He knows the one you turned into a joke in front of your friends. He knows the one you didn't say because part of you was afraid it would actually close the chapter for good. But peace doesn't come from avoidance. Peace comes when you sit with your hands open and say, Ya Allah, I don't want to carry this anymore. If this is not from you, remove the desire for it from me completely. If it was never meant to be, then don't just take them away, take the pain too. That's the dua that breaks cycles. That's the dua that stops the repetition. That's the dua that turns a recurring dream into a released burden. Maybe you've been praying for them. Maybe you've been asking for answers. But have you asked for freedom? Because the most powerful dua isn't always the one where you ask Allah to give. It's the one where you finally ask Him to take. Take the confusion. Take the weight. Take the longing that never settles. Take the part of you that's still stuck in a moment that's no longer yours. And when you finally release it through dua, when you cry for real, not because you're hurting, but because you're ready, the repetition will fade. The dreams will slow. And if they come back, they won't control you, because you'll know now, this was never about them. It was about the prayer that your soul had been delaying. And the one who loved you enough to keep calling you back until you finally made it. It's not a message about them. It's a message about your emotional discipline. You saw them again last night? Just like the night before and the night before that. And each time it feels so real, so personal, so timed. You wake up and everything in your chest tightens. Your mind starts spinning. Your heart starts speaking before your soul can catch up. Was it a sign? Should I reach out? Is Allah trying to bring us back together? But slow down, my dear soul. Breathe. This might not be about them at all. This might not be a message for them. It might be a message for you, for your inner world, your emotional patterns, your self-control. Because not every dream is a doorway. Some dreams are walls built to teach you how to stop running back to what Allah already closed. You see, when your heart is attached to something deeply, secretly, emotionally, even after it's gone, your emotions keep seeking permission to reopen it. They wait for excuses. They crave a sign. And when that dream appears, your feelings grab onto it like a drowning person grabs a rope. You convince yourself, maybe this is my chance. But here's the truth. No one tells you it's not always a chance. It's a check. Allah is checking. Will you obey your feelings or your faith? Will you act on emotion or pause in remembrance? This is where emotional discipline comes in. Not the kind that's cold. Not the kind that suppresses or shames. But the kind that is anchored in Allah. The kind of discipline that says, yes, I feel something, but I will not let it move me away from Allah. The kind that sees the dream, feels the pull, wants to respond, but instead makes wudu, sits in sujood, and whispers, Ya Allah, I will wait for you to guide my heart, not for dreams to tempt it. This is the test of your emotional maturity, of your spiritual strength, of your ability to want without chasing, to feel without falling, to remember without reopening. Some people think discipline is about saying no to desires. But the highest level of discipline, it's saying no to emotional shortcuts. It's resisting the urge to use a dream as a green light. It's surrendering not just your actions, but your interpretations. It's looking up and saying, Ya Allah, even if this dream shook my chest, I will not move until you move me. That's not weakness. That's power. Because real tawakkul is not just trusting Allah with outcomes. It's trusting Him with your impulses. And when you feel that dream again, when the longing comes back like a wave, Allah is watching, not because He wants to see you suffer, but because He wants to see you rise. To rise above the emotional cycle, to rise above the excuses, to rise above the version of yourself that keeps waiting for someone to return, instead of returning to your Rabb. And if you pass that test, even once, even in a small, quiet way, Allah will replace that restlessness with peace. Not because the dream stopped, but because you did. You stopped interpreting everything as a sign to go backward. You started seeing it as a sign to go inward. You stopped chasing emotional stories and started rewriting your soul's response. And that's when the test becomes worship. That's when your restraint becomes reward. That's when Allah begins to whisper back, not through the dream, but through the peace that finally returns to your heart. The dream comes back because you're still waiting for closure from a human, not from Allah. You saw them again, not because you searched for them, not because you scrolled through memories or text messages or old photos. You were just trying to move on. You were doing better, but the dream came again. Softly, unexpectedly, cruelly. And now you're back in that place, wondering, questioning, hurting. Again, it makes you think, why is my heart still holding on? Why do I still need to understand? Why does it still feel like something's missing? And maybe, just maybe, it's because you're still waiting for something from them that can only come from Allah. Closure. Not the kind that comes from a final conversation. Not the kind where they explain everything and say the right words and finally validate your pain. But the kind where your soul exhales and says, I don't need them to come back. I just need to make peace with what Allah already removed. You see, we often tell ourselves we've moved on, but the heart is quiet until it's tested. And the dream, the recurring, haunting, soul-shaking dream is that test. It's Allah asking, have you truly closed the door or are you still peeking through the keyhole? Because you can delete the contact, you can walk away physically. But if your closure is tied to their explanation, to their apology, to their return, then your heart still belongs to something that Allah already set you free from. And that's why the dream returns. It's not a loop, it's a reminder. Allah is reminding you, you're still expecting healing from the same hands that broke you. And my dear soul, that kind of healing will never come, not from them, not from their words, not from their guilt or regret, if it ever even comes at all. Because true closure does not begin when they finally understand you. It begins when you finally release them, not out of bitterness, not out of anger, but out of trust that Allah knows more than you, that He saw things you didn't, that He ended it, not because you were unworthy, but because He was protecting something greater. But as long as your heart is still sitting in the waiting room of what if, as long as you're still hoping for an ending that gives you peace, you will stay trapped in a cycle that can only be broken by turning to the one who never left. The dream is not coming back to tell you they miss you. It's coming back because you still miss a version of peace that you thought they would give you. But only Allah gives true peace. As-salam, the source of peace. So tonight, maybe it's time to pray for closure, not from them, but from Allah. Not a closure of answers, but a closure of weight, a closure of attachment, a closure that doesn't need words. Because your dua said everything. Ya Allah, I'm done expecting humans to heal what only you can. I'm done seeking understanding from someone who couldn't even understand my value. I'm done trying to reopen a door you already locked. If they were not written for me, then close this chapter in my heart as you've closed it in my life. And fill the empty space, not with people, but with you. And when you pray that sincerely, tearfully, completely, something will change. Maybe not the dream, but the way it lands. You'll still see them, but your heart won't break. You'll still remember, but your chest won't tighten. Because now, your closure didn't come from them. It came from the most merciful. And when closure comes from Allah, it never reopens again. The test isn't why you saw them, it's what you do after you wake up. You open your eyes, the dream is over, but the feeling isn't. It stays, it lingers in your chest like a fog you can't shake off. You lie there, staring at the ceiling, quiet, confused, maybe even in tears. And in that fragile moment, in that first breath, after sleep, you start searching for meaning. Why did I see them again? Is this a sign? Is Allah trying to tell me something? But my dear soul, what if the question isn't why you saw them, but what will you do with it now? Because the test didn't happen in the dream. It began the second you woke up. Allah already knows what you saw. He allowed it. He designed it. He wrote it into your night. Not to confuse you, but to observe your reaction to it. Would you rush back into emotion or sit with reflection? Would you open the door Allah already closed? Or keep it locked with tawakkul? Would you let your heart be hijacked by feeling or disciplined by faith? You see, the dream itself might be out of your control, but your response, your next move, that's entirely your choice. And it carries weight because how you respond to a moment of emotional vulnerability says more about your maturity than how you act when everything is clear. Anyone can be strong when they're not triggered. But when Allah shows you them again with softness, closeness, warmth, familiarity, that's when your soul is being tested. Not just your love, But your loyalty, your trust, your ability to say, Ya Allah, I don't know what this means, but I choose to return to you before I return to anyone else. That moment, that first decision after waking up is sacred. It's where hearts are trained. It's where wounds are either reopened or offered to Allah. And maybe that's why the dream keeps coming back. Not because you didn't see the sign, but because you keep responding in a way that pulls you further from Allah, not closer. You check their profile. You ask a friend if they've mentioned you. You wait for a message. You scroll through old pictures. You keep their memory alive with questions that only Allah can answer. And each time you do that, you choose emotion over elevation. You choose longing over obedience. You choose what was once written in your story over what's being written for your future. But what if you did something different? What if the next time you wake up from that dream, you sit up slowly? You don't run to your phone. You don't message anyone. You don't go chasing signs. You just whisper, Ya Allah, this is yours now. Whatever part of me is still aching, still questioning, still holding on, I surrender it to you. That moment of stillness, that is ibadah. That is you turning a dream into worship. That is you turning heartbreak into healing. That is you showing Allah, even when I'm weak, I still choose you. And maybe that's all the test was ever meant to be. Not about the person, not about the past, but about you learning how to wake up and walk toward Allah instead of walking back into memories that were never meant to stay. So remember this, my dear brother, my dear sister, it's not the dream that defines your path. It's what you do after the dream ends. Because Allah doesn't just test what you see. He tests what you do with what you saw. So the next time you see them in your dream, pause. Don't rush. Don't panic. And don't assume it means they're meant to return. It could simply mean this. Allah hasn't finished teaching your heart something through what you thought was over. And maybe, just maybe, that dream was never about them at all. Maybe it was about you, your healing, your dua, your growth, and your return, not to a person, but to the one who's been waiting for you all along.